Born, so it's obviously a medical as well as health.
Yes, someone from ER. It seems to be like there was so much. I saw Doctor magazine skillfully folded up there, so it looked like that's one of those kind of. Joining us now on the line, we have Dr. So-and-so and his weekly thing about...
I think it's also a man of wit as well. I think people enjoy listening to this person, whether they feel well or not.
It's not Dr. Finlay, then?
I think I know who it is.
Pardon?
I think I know who it is.
You do?
Yes.
Then speak your mind.
I think it's Michael Van Straten.
You're right. Michael Van Straten, will you come through the keyhole? Now, Michael, it's good to see you again. Now, Toya there had such confidence, such determination. She knew it was you.
I know. I've got a fan, a listener.
Well, it's not just me, but coincidentally, last night, my neighbour, where I live in London, a 73-year-old woman, stopped me in the street to tell me how much she loves your radio show. Oh, so you were in my mind anyway.
Wasn't that
And when I
nice?
saw the books, I thought it can only be one person, and it was you.
Well,
Isn't that nice?
Aren't they? Amazing.
I
wouldn't have guessed me from that.
You wouldn't?
No,
You didn't think you lived there at all?
No, no. I mean, I look quite interesting if you look at all those bits and pieces. You know, it's not true.
But the naturopathy or naturopathy, which is it?
Naturopathy.
Naturopathy.
Yeah.
And that, what's the difference between that and, say, homeopathy?
Well, naturopathy is probably the grandfather, David, of alternative therapies, so what's now politely called complementary therapies. When I started, in the old days, when we first met...
filth and destruction.
Well, it was fringe medicine.
Yes.
You know, we were all sort of...
Then that was up to alternative, and now it's complementary.
Now it's complementary. And the newest word is integrated medicine.
Now, you talked about foods that heal and foods that harm. Now, what's an example of a couple of really healthy healing foods and a couple of really harmful foods?
Well, the greatest healing food of all is cabbage, known throughout Europe as the medicine of the poor. Sadly, so many kids in this country grow up with, well, not anymore because we don't have school dinners anymore, they have burgers, but in the old days, our generation, grew up with school cabbage, which was overcooked and sulphurous and smelt revolting. But cabbage is wonderful. You can use cabbage leaves as a poultice for your arthritis. You can drink cabbage juice to cure your ulcers. You can eat cabbage if you've got skin problems, because it's got lots of sulphur in, which is antibiotic and antibacterial. So cabbage is a wonderful, wonderful food. I suppose, if I can cheat and have two more, tomatoes are brilliant.
Really?
Tomatoes contain an amazing chemical called lycopene. Now, you see, we've only discovered what that is in the last few years. But naturopaths like me have been making people eat tomatoes for 100 years, because they actually help to reduce heart disease, they protect against some forms of cancer, all because of the lycopene. So if your kids want to put ketchup on things, let them, because there's even more of it in concentrated ketchup. And lastly, garlic. That's why my nickname is Dr. Garlic. On the radio station, they call me Dr. Garlic.
Can't stand garlic.
But you should. It lowers your cholesterol, it reduces your blood pressure. You know, it's the best cure for athlete's foot.
Is it
Really? That's how garlic came to this country. The Roman legionnaires, when they were marching, used to stuff cloves of garlic between their toes to stop them getting athlete's foot. And they brought it with them and planted it, and it grew. So if you put some garlic...
What a torture.
If you put garlic in some hot water and bathe your feet and add a little vinegar, I mean, your feet will smell a bit like a French chip, but your athlete's foot will get better.
Well, I'm despairing of the things that do good for us. Maybe I can manage a bit of cabbage, but now what about a couple that we have to give up then? Foods that harm.
I think if you were going to talk about anything which people should try to avoid, it's the horrible chemicalized foods. These packets of stuff that you add water and you've got a bowl of what's supposed to be soup. Right? Things like fruit drinks aimed at kids, which they put a huge amount of chemicals and preservatives and colorings and flavorings and water and sugar and artificial sweeteners and a little bit of added vitamin C and call it a healthy drink. You can't make the silk purse out of the sow's ear.
Can something like acupuncture go where no other medicine can go and provide healing?
Yeah.
That is not possible by pills?
Not just acupuncture on its own.
No.
But if you combine all the therapies, which is what integrated medicine is about, if you're looking at something, say, like arthritis, the ancient remedies, like the cabbage leaf poultice, like cod liver oil. Do you know, we now know, the scientists have actually discovered why cod liver oil stops your joints from hurting. Because the special natural fats, the fish oils in cod liver oil, actually interfere with the way in which the body produces a particular chemical which causes the inflammation in your joints. It works just the same way as the most modern anti-inflammatory drugs, without giving you stomach ulcers, at about a 50th of the cost. You just take a teaspoon of cod liver oil. It works.
Magic.
Magic.
Well, you solved all
But
our
nature's
problems.
magic.
You solved all our problems, Michael, as we expected you would. This is very good for nosebleed. You just drop it down your back. I recommend it.
Good naturopathic
Just
treatment.
take the key, 2 tablets, and call me in the morning. Michael, thank you. Our thanks then to Michael. I wonder who's next. Let's join Lloyd right now at house number 2 as we go through the keyhole.
These folks like to travel. They've got pictures on the wall of Capri and Corfu. So they like places where the sun shines, and maybe places where the wine is good too, because they've also been to Stellenbosch in South Africa. They're certainly a rather bookish family. There are some very, very well-read paperbacks in this bookcase. And there seems to be a particular interest in biography. And there are biographies galore here in the sitting room. Most of them have to do with show business. So there are books by or about Barbara Windsor, Laurence Olivier, Peter Sellers, Margaret Rutherford, Harry Seacombe, and many, many other stars. So there seems to be a real interest in the art and craft of performing. Now, this is really quite a fabulous room. It's the oldest room in the house. It's mid-16th century, and boy, does it have the beams to prove it. There's also a rather hefty post which appears to be holding the rest of the house up. Now, these people we know like to travel, and in this room there seems to be a fondness for Africa. Look at this painting, some enraged-looking zebras and a secretary bird. So these folks like Africa very much indeed. They also like words. There are interesting reference books here, a reverse dictionary, an ordinary dictionary, a thesaurus, and a crossword puzzle book. So word games are a favorite pastime around here. This room also has quite a lot of Gurkhabilia. Look at that. That's the Brigade of Gurkhas coat of arms. And here are some of those famous and lethal-looking Gurkha knives. I guess this room must be the library. It's very snug and comfortable. And in here we can see that someone in this family has a real mania for organization, likes everything to be absolutely in the proper place because all the books have been divided by category. And this huge section of shelving is all devoted to mysteries, including many English classics. So someone around here likes the brain-teasing aspect of reading and maybe trying to solve mysteries. In here you can also see that humor is very, very important. We've got a wall full of classic cartoons. So it's not surprising to see Mr. Punch sitting on top of a bookcase, and indeed there is a rather large run of bound volumes of Punch when it was a classic humor magazine. Music is also important to this family. We've got busts of Mendelssohn and Beethoven and Mozart. So this is a nice room for listening to classical music. We also see that art is very important to these people. They like visual stimulation, they like color, they like interesting shapes. So we have all manner of rather intriguing objects. Some of them seem to be from Africa. And there's a particularly spectacular and colorful wall hanging, which looks as if that's come from South Africa. This is a really well-used, lived-in kitchen. It's got lots of good kit. Look at that bread-making machine, for example. And they've got these nice enameled cast-iron French saucepans. So you can tell that the people who live in this house really, really love their food. As you'd expect, they've got a terrific collection of cookbooks, some very glossy Mediterranean and modern British ones. But more to the point, some of the real classics, like French Provincial Cooking by Elizabeth David, which they've obviously had for quite a long time. So cooking is a long-standing and passionate interest here. Painting and sketching are quite important around here, so important that there's this wonderful studio to do them in. Now, in the bookshelves behind me, there's an intriguing mix of military history and artists' reference works. You've seen flying ducks on people's walls. Well, it's quite appropriate that this food-loving artist would have flying tomatoes on his. Now, let's look at the evidence. The Gurkhabilia, keeping us entertained, artwork. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, here's whose house it is. Interesting reaction there, Dermot.
Well, there's a lot there to go on. I reckon it's an illustrator who's won a BAFTA for their cooking, or maybe their paintings of flying tomatoes, and who writes mysteries in their spare time, and who's a real lovey. I haven't a clue.
They haven't a clue. Good.
We're looking at a man here, I think.
Yes.
He has a hostess trolley in the kitchen, so he likes to entertain. Possibly have dinner in front of the telly, but that doesn't give us any clues, really. I think he uses his books as reference books for his work. It's interesting to see the Walt Disney books there. I think this man is interested in satire as well. No, we've gone completely cold there.
Well, the Disney you mentioned, yeah.
So the aspect of cartoonist.
Progress. Yes, Jono.
Well, it was interesting. I would have said illustrator because you've got all those.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Because you've got the old Punch, and you've got lots of reference material there, and the travelling, and probably doing drawings on on the run, on sketches and things like that. It's very hard to try and put down because there was a BAFTA award up in between the two African things. So maybe he's won awards for sketches or for cartoons, or maybe he's done like film art direction or that sort of thing. There's nothing.
What area would he be recognised in? I mean,
well, there was.
You mentioned he's not Disney, but I mean you mentioned Disney, so
animation, maybe.
Animation, is it?
well, yes, and but what group of an audience?
Children.
Yes.
Something about Tony Hart.
Yes. Tony Hart, will you come through the keyhole? Tony, it's so good to see you. Now, that was amazing. Where did that inspiration come from there, Dermot?
Well, the cartooning. It was really... And also, those tomatoes didn't look like political satire or punch. So I thought they might have been a bit of a hint.
Yeah, well, there you are. You were found out. Back in the minute, all the Gurkha and the India bit. Yeah. Now, that is a fascinating bit of history because you actually went out and fought for the Gurkha Rifles or whatever.
Well, I didn't have to fight by the time. I went straight from school to the Indian Army Holding Detachment in England, from there to the Indian Military Academy in Dehradun. And from there, I was very, very lucky and got commissioned into the 1st Gurkhas, who had their being then in Dharamsala. We were really doing what they were doing in Northern Ireland during the riots in India, where aid to the civil power, it was called then. and we had to go along, and the Gurkhas were very good at that because they didn't care a hoot who they were going to stop making beasts of themselves, you see. And so I enjoyed that enormously. I then came home on leave after 3 years, and while I was at home, got a message from India office, come and see us. So I went up there thinking, have I paid my mess bill, you know, because I thought I was going back to India. And what they were saying, in effect, was not worth you going back. It was 1947, and we handed India back.
Oh, so you didn't get to go back. Now, going from that, what was the thing that gave you the big break in terms of the extraordinary work you've done, particularly for children on television? I mean, what was the big break?
Well, there were two. The first one was in meeting a children's television producer in London who said, I understand you draw fast. You better come and see me. We were both a little drunk at the time, and so it took a long time to get to see him. You know how it is, you know, telephoning. And I went to his office, and he said, draw me something fast. He and his secretary then started trying to find a piece of paper. I got my pen out. The paper didn't seem forthcoming, so I drew a fish standing on its tail, blowing bubbles, on the paper napkin that came with the coffee. It was a good move, that.
Yes, good move.
You're in.
Yeah. And so that started it. And then what was the second break?
The real break was the start of a program called Vision On for children, for deaf children. I'm sure a lot of people will remember that. And actually, people wrote in or telephoned and said, are we allowed to watch this program? Because they thought only the deaf would see it. But it did sort of get around the world. Yeah. It went to America, which was a very good thing indeed. And so it went on. And program after program over the years, I thought, this is quite extraordinary. I don't seem to have to do anything at all. Just make splendid, nice pictures that I like doing, and the years went by. So
all these years, and still going strong, and I mean, what's the essence of appealing particularly to children originally and so on? I mean, what's the magic of it? I don't think there's any magic in it. What I think it is, there are good ways of doing things and bad ways of doing things. And if you want children to be creative, you've got to do something as good as you are able to do. And you don't say, copy me. You go as far as you can and then leave it, hoping that they will say, I wonder why he stopped there. I'm going to do that, and I shall finish it off like this. And therefore, they find themselves being creative without any problems at all. What a wonderful definition of how it's done. It's very, very clear that. You're absolutely right about leading them on to do things. You've done it so well all your life, and we'll do it for a lot longer, it may be added, with the aid of the magic key. With the key? That is the secret of life. There we are. Tony Hart, it's wonderful to have him with us. That was great, Tony. Oh, it's just wonderful. Tony Hart, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Michael Van Stratton. Not to mention our panel there, Jono, Toya, and Dermot. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
Whether you're moving up,
look for the next hot spot.
Down,
You're looking at the last bit of undeveloped real estate left in London.
in or out.
Space it would seem is a lot like size. What matters is what you do with it.
Or just staying put.
Have a clear out.
We want our houses to do more for us.
Be ruthless.
All will be revealed.
Whether you're nesting or investing, make the most of your home.
The Definitive Property Show.
All the right moves. Tuesday at 8:30 on BBC Two.
Here and now, this is where the fun is. CBBC on BBC One with Michael and Emlyn.
Good afternoon to you. It's Wednesday here at CBBC. We've got loads coming up for you today. In fact, I won't just tell you about it, I'll show you what's coming up. Take a look.
First of all, we have Pablo the Little Red Fox coming up.
Yeah, then after Pablo, it's Yo-Ho Ahoy!
Closely followed by Bodger and Budger.
Yes, loads and loads. Also, I think we should find out who's today's winner of Emlyn's Alphabet. Emlyn?
That's right. This is, the letter is X. Did I mention that? There it is.
Yes.
And the winner is Nicky Munns with this picture of an X-ray. Look at that.
Very nice
Which
indeed.
give me an idea, actually.
Yeah, do you know, I was wondering what they were going to draw, like X-ray, xylophone, or maybe the X-Men. There's not many, really,
There
is
you
there?
go. This is my X-remote control. Ready?
Hang on, what does that do?
I'll show you.
Okay. Hey! Wow, look at that! You can see all my bones.
Did you eat anything for lunch?
Yeah, are you sure this is all right, by the way?
Yeah, I'm just going to stand behind this screen over here.
Emlyn, here's the Tweenies.
Come on,